All right, guys.
Welcome to the Deer Shop Podcast, presented by Siman Brothers Outdoors and the Leaky John Boat Company.
He went and watched a movie that has a $200 million production budget, and then the next thing he watched was our video on YouTube that has a $0 production budget.
This is the first buck I've shot in over 10 years.
Your track job was the first fun track job. That kind of like, I think part of my life was influenced by that night.
Then you miss him 3 times with a rifle at 70 yards on video for the whole world to see.
Yeah, that's what Caleb did. 5 years ago, we couldn't shoot a deer at 100 yards with a slug gun. Now you're shooting turkeys at 100 yards with a shotgun.
Joey takes the shop is closing up.
Make sure he takes all his right antlers. You can't leave it.
Holy mama.
Listen, we're fine.
Deer Shop Podcast, episode 76. Isaac is going to have a hell of a time trying to find the beginning of this video.
No, we found it.
But it's all right. It is, what is today? January.
It's 2025.
January 5th, 2025. It is Sunday of Ohio's muzzleloader season. It is cold as balls, snowing. Tonight's hunt was an absolute shit show. Which, this is at least 2 or 3 muzzleloader seasons in a row where we've all come together to have a fine evening in the woods and ended up just scaring, just shooting at deer in all directions.
So, I mean, our flight of fall every year is not shooting these muzzleloaders all year. And then
It's complete irresponsibility.
And that's
100%.
That's really what it is.
So I'm in the studio today, me, Isaac, Uncle Jay. We are eventually going to talk about.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks
you
for
haven't
having me
been.
on.
When was the last time you were in here?
Was it the girlfriend podcast?
Maybe.
Now ex-girlfriend?
Ex-girlfriend podcast.
It might have been. That was last hunting season around this time.
It was spring.
Yeah.
Yeah, following.
No. It was, we did it No, it was around this time.
Yeah, it was cold
because
still.
we did. Yeah, we were doing it in preparation for the upcoming spring.
Yep. Kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But late season, muzzleloader. I've seen a ton of deer tonight. I think everyone's seen a ton of deer tonight.
The deer numbers are not low, that's for sure.
No. We've had, to bring the audience in, we've had a massive cold front come in. Perfect timing for muzzleloader season. We were actually very excited to get to this season because we actually had some bucks start showing up again. There was some deer on the hit list that were starting to show up again. Tyler and Luke, 2 prime examples of guys that had shooter bucks on camera and killable within the last couple weeks. So we were very excited to be able to get the muzzleloaders in our hands and do some damage to those deer. We're sitting here with no deer Sunday night.
There is deer hanging up in the shop.
Was that Dylan's father-in-law?
Yeah,
Ancillary deer.
Yeah, ancillary buddy's deer needed a place to hang it, didn't want it to freeze in his garage, so he's going to have it freeze in our garage. Luke actually had a very good hunt on Friday. He went out prior to muzzleloader opening the Friday. So this last Friday was the last day of archery before muzzleloader. We got a crazy snowstorm. Jay was actually supposed to come over and sight in his muzzleloader. That was part of the irresponsibility we talked about, but he couldn't because it literally just blew snow for 10 hours.
Yeah.
Luke went out and had his number 1 target buck that he's been hunting all year stand up out of his bed at 70 yards and walk parallel to him, take a drink of water, and walk away out of his life.
So if he would have had a muzzleloader, we would have had.
Yeah.
Is any of this on film?
Yep.
Yeah.
The whole
Oh,
thing.
sweet. Cool.
Yeah, the video's good. Obviously hasn't been edited yet, but so we went into muzzleloader season thinking, man, that deer's going to be there in that block of woods. We're going to be able to get a play on it. Me and Tyler went in. There's been a buck that he was in our videos last year. We called him the Deer Drive buck. He was in our videos this year. The prologue episode, we talked about velvet stuff. We talked about how this deer is going to be a card in our pocket to play late season. And here we are late season. This buck has been coming in. Nick and Tate, Tyler's brother, they set up a blind. They've been putting out a bunch of corn out. We actually hunted this deer during gun season and extended gun season. Didn't have encounters with him even though he's in the area. He came in. We went out hunting him on Saturday. He came in Saturday before we got there. He was in there feeding at about 150. We got there about 240. We saw a ton of deer. watched a good 3-year-old, 130-inch 3-year-old fight with some other bucks, elected to pass him. Tyler's actually passed that deer twice now, which I'm surprised by. Tyler's been known to shoot anything with antlers before, but he's passing some deer, which is good. We did not get to go in and hunt him today, so I took a wild card and came and hunted here on the home farm. Tyler had to go to his daughter's baptism today, which is obviously more important than shooting a deer. And that buck showed up at 4:30 and ate for an hour while we were not in there.
So he would have been at 50 yards for an hour.
So that's kind of how our muzzleloader season's gone. Ethan had, so here in the home farm, the 4-year-old 9, which is the topic today, what makes a trophy. This buck started this topic for us. The 4-year-old 9 had been coming in. He'd come in Friday morning and Saturday morning at 8:40 on the dot. 8:40 on the dot. The wind for the stand's perfect. He's been there. So Ethan went in this morning and did not see him. And then I went in
all Ethan saw was a button buck.
Yeah. And then I went in tonight to hunt that same stand, hoping he would, since he didn't make an appearance in the morning, he'd come up this evening. No. I saw a spike and about 25 does and a button buck.
He's been MIA since Saturday morning.
Since Saturday morning he's been off camera, which doesn't mean much this time of year. Could be dead, could not.
Could be 100 yards away watching.
Luke spent 2 days hunting that buck we just talked about. Didn't see shit. Didn't show up. Was not in that same bed again. Wasn't on the corn. Hasn't been eaten in front of the camera. So
weird property he hunts. It's either he has 100 deer in front of him or 2.
Yeah. Isaac took out the old 50 caliber cap and ball today and just was just shooting at deer in the woods and not killing them.
I only whiffed 1 shot.
How many did Jay miss today?
Well, I missed 1 deer and 1 target to see if my gun was shooting.
Did you shoot at the target the second time?
Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't. Yeah. I guess I didn't know that part. I thought you shot at another deer.
No.
I just keep hearing shots back here towards the road.
Did you shoot at it from the blind?
No.
You see it?
No, I got down on my way back here. I ranged it 70 yards, dropped down, put my gun on my back, nice and steady. Nothing. No.
Yeah. Did you even see where the snow flew up?
Nope. No, but I did find my shot from where I missed the deer. So left to right, I'm great. Up and down, something's catastrophically wrong. So
that's only like 5 deer in a row you missed here, but I wasn't going to bring that up, but I did.
It's 5's a stretch. I think it's 4.
Technically, muzzleloader season is 2 more days. You'll be listening to this podcast Monday morning, so you can still hunt Monday morning or Monday night, Monday and Tuesday. I don't know how much we're going to get out.
I'm going to hunt Tuesday night for sure.
I can only hunt tomorrow night if your fiance is able to watch my baby.
She might be able to. You have to ask her.
It depends on if I want to get cold again, too.
It is cold.
I might just stay inside.
What's it? It's supposed to be like tomorrow. It's supposed to be like today.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to try to shoot my gun and get it right tomorrow, and then I'm coming out tomorrow night.
I enjoy these cold weather late season hunts a lot.
Me too.
And I was talking we talked pre-podcast for a while. Jade brought over some bear chili. We had some China food with it. It was a good combination, which I really enjoyed. I don't get cold until I get up to leave. So while I'm hunting, I'm so in the zone. I got my system going where my hands are warm, my feet are warm, everything's good. I get up to pack my camera equipment away and walk back to the house, and then instantly just go from everything's fine to, oh my God, I'm dying cold.
I think that's the opposite of a lot of people.
That's what
Ethan said. It's opposite for him.
I hate when you're up in the stand, especially when there's deer in front of you, you're not moving for 20 minutes, and then it's starting to get dark, and you're like, I got to get my camera down. I got to unclip myself from the stand. Yep. I got to climb down. Yep. I got to pack all my shit. There's a 20-minute process for us filming that we have to do after the hunt, and you're so done with it, you don't want to.
That makes sense.
It's literally the worst.
Packing up your camera arm, and then my stupid backpack, the way it works, I got to get my camera arm in there just right. I hate it. We've talked about it I think we talked about when I was podcasting with Nick about his deer. When I go to film him, he's so used to being it got dark, let's get out here. Tear down quick and get back to the truck. I want to sneak out here. We got a moment where there's no deer in the field or whatever. He just has to drop his bow down and climb out. And I'm fiddle fucking and taking my camera arms off. So I've started not bringing my camera arm when I film people. I'm just freehanded. That way I just throw it in my bag and go. Because the setting up you have right here. But this is the problem. So he shot the deer.
And I moved.
And you move the camera and you can't see where the arrow goes. Yeah, just because there's a movement of the camera.
It's give and take, It's a give and take. But we decided, the group of us were texting the other day about a specific deer. And we've been going round and round and round all season long. Is this deer 4 years old? Is it not? It was a deer. Last year we called him the 3-year-old 9. to us last year, he was clearly a 3-year-old. I passed him once or twice. He probably scored low 130s last year, maybe
He was
high
a little
120s,
bit bigger,
low
probably.
130s. He was a good 3-year-old buck. We had other deer that we were obviously interested in. So I gave him the pass a couple times last year. We were very much looking forward to him showing up at the farm this year. He did show up on the farm around October of this year. It was after Velvet. And he, we say it's the same deer. Obviously, we don't know for sure. But his left antler is identical. His right antler is identical. He's just, for lack of better terms, smaller antler-wise. It looks like his mass and everything got smaller. So for the entire season this year, we've always been talking, is this deer actually 3? Is he actually 4? Is this a deer that we're going to shoot? And then, we've kind of come to the conclusion that he is a 4-year-old buck based on the way his body was in October and November and the way he was acting. We officially put the stamp on that he's 4 years old, and it started the conversation of what's a trophy. And we thought it'd be a good topic for tonight, deer season winding down.
And we kind of decided he was going to be on the shoot list because he's the only 4-year-old deer we have regularly visiting
right now
the farm right now.
Yep, the home farm. He's
So
the only
can-
4-year-old.
I mean, can we define the trophy as in for the area? And for our area right now, he's all we got.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get into tonight. We have a large. I wish we were able to get 6 or 7 people on a podcast like this because we're going to be paraphrasing some of our friends that aren't here, some of the guys in our group that aren't here. But
Sue us.
yeah, it's something that is very interesting, and I think that the audience would really like to get into on what actually makes a trophy. And I have lots of things I want to say on it, but I'm going to pass the buck along. We're going to go to the end of the table, and we'll start down there with Jay. He's obviously hunted longer than us, more than us. Lots of states, killed bucks in lots of states, and his view of the world is going to be a little bit different than ours, so it's a good place to start.
Yeah, like we were saying in our group text, I think a lot of people's ideas are just going to kind of come back, like they're going to be self-serving a little bit. Like, why would you consider what you're doing a trophy versus what I'm doing as, you know what I'm saying? So you as your own person and the way you hunt, that's all in the eye of the beholder. Like for me, the word trophy has kind of 2 aspects of it. One of it is how much work went into the kill versus just the inches. You have trophy by definition, which is a measurement versus which, some dude can go out smoking a cigarette, shoot a booner, that's a trophy in inches versus the guy who grinds and puts in the time and puts in the work and knows his woodsmanship and just tons of work and effort and kills a 130. To me, that is also a trophy because the work that went into it. It's such a subjective thing. And what I like about this topic, especially for a podcast, is that there's going to be people listening to it that are going to be yelling at the radio.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean.
Some of our friends are going to be yelling,
which is great. I mean, that's this is all good conversation, and it's great to hear other people's opinions. And I think for me, being a travel hunter and really priding myself in like woodsmanship and reading topography and whatever, we Dylan's part of that group text, and I am in agreement with Dylan on a lot of things. Like there are certain standards I have for myself. That doesn't skew my view of what you guys do or what anybody else does. So I can look at someone else's work on public land who shoots a 130, who put in the time, the woodsmanship, the effort. That is, in my opinion, a trophy for that person. That person may not think it's a trophy.
It's nice of you to throw Dylan a little bone there.
But I agree with him. I agree with, like, I have standards for myself, and then, like, that being said, I struggle to say I would never do X. Mm-hmm. Because
there's never a never and always a never.
Right.
Always a never and never and always, however that phrase goes.
So there are going to be moments that are so awesome in the moment. I want to capitalize on that moment.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest with you. That Iowa buck I shot, I had no idea he was as big as he was. I thought it might have been, not have met what I kind of hold myself to, as far as like, you get a handful of good deer, you start kind of like holding yourself to a certain standard, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at. I kind of agree with Dylan there.
He was quite unimpressive.
What's it? What? Who? Dylan?
No, your buck.
Oh, my buck. Yeah, 170. Yeah. It's really, if you're gonna gun to head, what is a trophy to me? A trophy to me is directly proportional to the amount of work you put into that animal.
So I'm going to run some hypotheticals by you before we continue on down the line. I think it's tough. There's a lot of our friends and social media in general does this game where, what does he score, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there has been there's always been a heavy skew the last couple of years because of social media to shoot a deer that scores X amount. And usually around here, that amount is 150. Around Northeast Ohio, a good buck's a 150-inch buck. If you shoot anything less than that, people are going to always say, there's always going to be a comment of, he could have been bigger next year. And that is, unfortunately, that's probably true in our area.
Mm-hmm.
A 6 or 7-year-old buck in this area normally is going to be north of 150 inches. So my hypothetical to you was, you go to Iowa, you go to Missouri, you go to Montana, even if you're hunting here in Ohio, which you do very little of, but if you were, you end up having a great hunt layout in front of you, and you have I guess there's two different things I could throw at. One is you have a broken rack, obviously mature deer, a 4, 5, 6-year-old buck that is obviously at the peak of his performance, chasing a doe around, maybe fights off a couple other deer, and he gives you that 20-yard shot, but he's got 3 broken tines. So a deer that might have scored 150, but he's missing his G2 on both sides and broke off the end of his main beam. Sorry. Are you shooting that deer?
I'm not, and I've passed that deer.
And what?
Like in real life, I've passed
simply
that deer.
Because of the antlers.
Yeah, there's something about broken tines that bum me out. And I don't know what it is. I can't really describe it.
That's that little thing we talked about before the podcast. A little bit of vanity.
Yeah, sure.
He's not what he
could
have been or what he was.
It is vanity in a way, and it's just something. And also, I wouldn't, like, let's say I shot a buck that I didn't know had a broken G4, right?
Right.
He's
walking.
I'm also not having the taxidermist fix that.
Yeah.
I want it as it is.
So you're not Josh Bomar. You're not going to add the tines back and score it as what he was.
Cool
Would
guy.
have been my 7th 200 inch.
Yeah.
If he had all his tines.
Yeah.
So no, I'm a big believer in respect that animal. What you killed him
he
as,
earned those scars.
Absolutely.
However he got it.
Yes, absolutely. So no, I would not shoot a broken tine deer.
And then my other caveat to that was, same scenario plays out. Great hunt, rutting, grunting. You have a bucks fighting, snort wheezing at each other, and he comes out in the field and he offers you a 20-yard shot. But he is, he's an obvious mature buck. But let's just say he's a big heavy 6, or like a big heavy 7-point with no brow tines. He's not a deer that would score at all, but he's heavy. He's a bully. You just watched him kick 150's ass out in the field and push him away.
I mean, if you're talking
that deer's
like
snorting on himself, slobbering.
I mean, let's say it's a 150-inch 6-point. I'd think long and hard.
120-inch 6-point,
probably,
but
not.
heavy.
Probably not.
See, that's
probably not.
And that's.
See, I'm shooting every time.
Yeah, well, we know you are. That's the interesting thing to me is, the deer itself. I've always kind of said this in our podcast, maybe because we don't have the best luck of killing bucks with large racks on their heads, but
now,
the deer don't know what he got up there.
So sorry to interrupt.
You know what I mean?
Like here's where you can get me on this question. Make that a cow elk out west.
Yeah, well, and I was going to go there eventually.
You know what I mean?
We were going to get to travel.
That's a different conversation.
We're definitely going to talk, after we talk about this, we're going to get into travel hunting, because that's something that has weighed on me a lot. And that's something that my circle of friends and some of the guys, other people that have podcasts that I talk to, other YouTube guys, that's something we struggle with a lot, is the travel hunting thing. And that's going to be its own thing. But I'm talking here in Ohio.
Yeah,
because that
no.
buck, he could be Mike Tyson. He don't know that he's got a lisp and he's 5'10". To him he's the baddest motherfucker in the planet. But if you look at him compared to because you could have a 3-year-old that has 130-inch rack that scores more, and that's another conversation we can get into is, you have the 2 bucks in the field, and this happens in Ohio. You get 2 bucks in a field, you got your shotgun in your hand. One's 145-inch 3-year-old, and the other one's 138-inch 5-year-old. Which one are you shooting?
So it's funny. I had almost this same situation, which I think where you're going with. I killed a 162. I think you scored like 13 point in Iowa. It's been a while ago, but when I shot that deer, he had just got his ass kicked by an 8 point, like 120, 30-inch 8 point.
Just
like
a bully.
Just a big brute of a deer. I think my deer was young too. I think he was probably only a 3-year-old, and he just got his ass kicked, and he was 100 yards away, and after got his ass kicked, did the walk of shame under my stand.
And he just whacked him, and then he dies. He gets his ass kicked, and then you killed him. Wow.
Yeah.
So did you make that conscious decision that you were going to shoot the one that you shot over the other one, or just because you had the opportunity?
So it was, I saw those two square off, and I just immediately said, that's a good the one on the left is a really good buck. I'm shooting that buck if I get a chance. The one on the right was never a consideration.
Really? Even though he was the more mature.
And I didn't, no.
So it's weird to me because, and this is podcast gold right here. You say you started your conversation with the work put in and the level of difficulty, and I think a term you like to use is the barrier to entry, and then you would just willingly kill the younger, dumber deer.
I mean,
you know what I mean? Like,
I think that's a generalization.
Because if you say that buck was a 3-year-old, got his ass kicked, walked in your stand, I mean, we pass 3-year-olds here on the farm like every hunt.
I passed one yesterday at 10 yards with a muzzleloader.
So because you're sitting up there in a tree stand texting on your phone, and he's eating at the pile of corn looking up at you and not running away.
Okay, if that 3-year-old was 162, would you pass him?
No.
All right, I rest my case.
I've never been in that situation. And it'd be interesting to see what I would do if I knew he was 3.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I don't know.
I didn't know either.
And you
I'm
were
watching
also travel hunting.
I'm travel hunting. Yeah. I put in the work. I put in this was my first morning on stand from a stand I'd hung 2-3 days before. I'd hung it, didn't hunt it yet. It was my first sit. So that's a win to me. That's never hunted this property, never scouted this property. It was topography, and that's a win to me.
I have no qualms with that whatsoever. It's just interesting. It's the point of this podcast. It's a lot of people, and I hope the comment section. I hope the comment section does get a little spicy on this.
Sure,
because it'd be great to know
respectfully
if
spicy.
People care. I don't care if you're disrespectful.
I'm going to call some people out here in a minute. So
I don't care if it's interesting to me. What makes the trophy? Is it the deer's age class? Is it just what he grows on his head? Is it the way he acts in the woods? Obviously, travel hunting and area dependent are two things that really play into what we're talking about. I mean, there's guys that are going to listen to this podcast that have never hunted anything outside of their 5 properties.
Yep.
It's a little bit of a moot point, but if you're going to spend, like you guys do, weeks on the road out west, is that going to change what you shoot because you want to have a receipt for what you've done? Or
I don't really want to have a receipt. I want to have an experience.
Yeah.
And sometimes that experience comes with killing something, even if it's not, quote unquote, a trophy.
Yeah.
Like some of the most fun I ever had was shooting that 2-point elk or mule deer up there in Utah. After we shot it, we packed it off the mountain. We saw a mountain lion, like the whole 9 yards.
I couldn't agree more.
For a complete and utter, somebody would just laugh at when it comes to trophy.
Yeah.
Because it's a 2-point mule deer.
Yeah, but that is an experience and a memory that's going to last forever. And like we talked about, bringing it full circle to the cow elk. That was my cow. Like I had that was
fill the audience in on that a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, so,
in case they haven't heard that story.
2 years ago, I had just an amazing year of killing. I shot a bear, my Iowa buck, and this elk, and I was getting my ass kicked elk hunting. And
On a very difficult hunt.
Yeah, it was really tough. And this was going into my 6th week of elk hunting. And
I want the audience to appreciate what that statement just was. This wasn't 6 days. This wasn't hunting on the weekends after work. This is 6 weeks. A guy that lives in Ohio spent 6 weeks hunting elk out west.
Yeah, it was I think it was just crossing into the 6th week. And the previous 2 days, day and a half, I spent in my tent because it was a torrential downpour. It was absolutely awful, like just unhuntable weather. And for it was almost 36 hours. And you start
Am I allowed to ask what you did in that tent?
Dude,
when you were in there?
I'll tell you exactly what I did. I burned up all my I played the shit out of Candy Crush, listened to some books on tape, watched some downloaded videos like Netflix and stuff, and then without this could have been the dumbest mistake. Again, you just start, you forget, you make these mistakes, and life lessons. I burned up all my spare battery chargers, and I had to trek in that rain back to my truck to sit in my truck.
Miles and miles.
Yeah, it's what you know exactly where I was. So it's about 3 miles? No, 2.5?
Something like that.
It's about 2.5 from the creek to the truck, right? Maybe 2?
Maybe more than that.
Maybe more?
Maybe
okay.
Closer to 5.
Okay.
Regardless.
Whatever. So went there and sat in my truck for a couple hours, letting that charge off my truck, which was just the dumbest mistake, but also it broke up sitting in my tent. Came back, and then that next morning when the weather broke was when I had the opportunity to shoot that cow, and that cow meant as much to me as anything with any inches on its head that I've ever killed. And I got to experience, it died in this creek. If you guys follow me on Instagram, you can see a little video of it on there. And then the pack out was just gnarly. It was 1.5 miles from where I killed it to camp, and then however far from camp to truck. So it took me 2 days to get it out. And, a lot of probably avid Western hunters are saying, it's a stupid fucking cow. It wasn't to me.
Yeah.
It wasn't to me. That meant the world to me, and it's still eating it today.
So I have a question for both of you guys. Your 2-point mule deer, your cow elk, would you do it again? So if you're out there again, since you've done it once, is this one of those things where you grow as a hunter, where you had the same experience? Would you shoot the animal again, or the next time are you going to hold out for something differently?
Well, this year proved it because I hunted the same hunt this past fall, and I passed on a couple deer that size.
So I think that plays a little factor, because there's always, we I guess since we host a podcast and people have listened to us for a couple of years now, and who knows how long they've been watching us on YouTube, even though we're not very big, there's this thought that we might be extremely seasoned hunters in all this aspect, but we don't do a ton of mule deer hunting. We don't do a ton of elk hunting.
So that was the first archery mule deer hunt I've ever been on.
You almost always get a mulligan for your first one, right? I mean, you gotta break the ice and learn how,
I mean, it just depends on the experience.
When you're a virgin, the first time is not always going to be perfect.
I think that's a really good point to make too about what is a trophy.
Yeah.
Every person's first animal is a trophy.
Right.
Hopefully to them and to everybody in the hunting industry.
Yep.
That's such a rite of passage and such a big deal. So that was my first elk.
Yeah.
And would I do it again? 100%.
So I don't.
If it were that point in the grind, yes, absolutely.
I don't like the comments you guys have gotten on some of our videos, the bear stuff. So both of your guys' bears on some of these comments on the YouTube, it's just a baby. It was a sow. Blah, blah, all this stuff from guys that live out that way, and that starts the whole out of state hunting debate.
So
but they don't know. And they might not know, or whatever it is that they're saying, that it was your first bear. It was your first bear.
Yeah, I also don't read comments, but I know that just to set the record straight, I don't know if this is out there. You have to take your bear to a biologist in Montana, and mine was aged at least 5. So he said, because it was a sow, and He's like, no, this was just a sow without cubs because she wasn't milking or anything. But he's like, this is definitely a mature bear. But that might be why she doesn't have sows, because she's just small in stature.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But listen, I mean, I would also respectfully challenge anybody who wants to armchair quarterback it, that when you're 30 yards from a bear with a bow, if you're going to sit there and if you're that good at judging that bear size, hey, you're better than me.
How many opportunities does a guy like us get at a bear with a bow?
And I also
in Montana.
And I'd also ask
we don't
if
live
they're
there.
thinking about the size, if they're 30 yards from a bear with a bow.
Obviously we've been watching bear hunting videos now for a very long time since we've got into this bear hunting thing that we've dabbled with. There's even guys that are professionals that have a hard time judging bear size at a distance.
Yeah, and they shoot when they walk up to it, and they're like, oh, it's a dog.
Yeah, that's why.
And I still watch my video. So we judge the bear I shot 430 yards away across the canyon. We watched it for 10, 15 minutes.
At least. Because we took
we
while.
moved into position, and we
yeah.
watched it for a while, and we made sure it didn't have any cubs. And we were convinced that was a 300-pound bear when I shot.
Yep. And I think it's pretty funny because I took that video.
You put it on Rock Slide.
I put it on Rock Slide, and all the seasoned Western hunters said 100% I'm shooting that bear. That's a big bear. And then I showed the hero photo, the grip and grin, and they're like, oh.
Yeah, he was just puffed up. And
he was puffed up. Just got done raining. Yeah. Probably shook up. Big puffy. Look, man. At the end of the day, I mean, I guess I'm a little bit sympathetic if a dude comes to Ohio, shoots 100-inch buck, and is like.
So that's what we're going to get into.
You know what I mean? Like,
because we live in a world, unfortunately, right here. Our hunting in this specific area on our farm where we're sitting right here has been affected by a lot of out-of-state hunters because of the guide service that was until recently located nearby, and I believe hopefully he's done forever. I don't know.
On my way here, I saw dudes in orange from North Carolina, just so you know.
Oh, God damn it. I don't mean that. I mean, I do, but and that's the thing. That's another thing that kind of started this conversation is we travel hunt a lot. And we have, when it comes to bear and elk, we're opportunistic feeders, obviously, right? We're going to kill what we can, do what we can. But we are kind of snobbish on deer here at the home farm because that is our bread and butter. And we have the ability to watch, on the TV right now, actually, is what I'm talking about. We have the ability to watch deer for years and years and years, make up these hit lists, kill the deer we want, let the deer we don't want to get killed go. If there's deer that I'm passing here on the farm, and then someone comes in the outfitter, the guy from North Carolina, and they shoot that deer that I've been passing. Should I be happy for them? Generally speaking, I probably should. Because that guy came up here from North Carolina where they only run 6 points.
Because we're that guy from North Carolina and Montana.
Right. So I should be happy for him. But I can't sit here and pass that deer in Ohio, let's just say 130-inch 3-year-old. Can't pass that deer here in Ohio and then go to Indiana or West Virginia, Pennsylvania, where I travel hunt, and shoot those guys' 130-inch 3-year-old. Does that make me a hypocrite? Do I become a hypocrite then because I'm mad that a guy does it here to my deer?
I think a tremendous amount of the hunting industry and people's opinions are hypocritical. I think a huge amount. So
we're definitely guilty of that.
Here's where I think where I've actually seen it and like in person, been a part of a situation where people from the South underestimate what a big deer is.
Yeah.
Or maybe overestimate. They've never seen a 250-pound deer with a 120-inch rack.
Right.
So they think it's a 150-inch.
Yep.
And I have been at these little dirt ball motels where someone's wounded an animal, and I'm like, I'll come help you track, man. Just trying to be a good dude, Yeah. And walk up, and he's like, at least a 150, at least.
Yeah.
These guys from Mississippi, at least a 150. I'm like, man, I'm excited for you. Looking forward to finding this thing. And we found it, and it was a 120-inch 10-point.
Yeah.
And I don't think they tagged it because they just
they weren't excited about it.
They walked up on it, and they had a lot of remorse. They were like, yeah, not quite 150 guys, but
Yeah,
congrats on finding the deer, and good luck to you.
It's funny. The ground shrinkage thing and going area to area to area. We see it when we go to West Virginia. Some of those deer down there, the last one that I shot there, his rack's in the box there. It probably only scores 60, 70, I don't know, maybe 80-inch 8-point. And that was the last buck I ever shot that I told myself from that moment on, I'm just going to start shooting. This is the last deer that I'm going to shoot that I'm not going to mount. So from this moment on, I'm going to shoot deer that I'm going to mount. There's a whole backstory I can get into on that deer. It was the first year hunting down there without Grandpa, all that stuff. And to be honest, he came up over the hill chasing like 8 does. So he came up with a bunch of does ran in first, and then West Virginia, you hunt with those big forests with the big oak trees and the big leaves. 8 deer come in. It's like crazy loud pandemonium. And I see this buck. He's grunting and he's chasing these does around, and he looked good. He looked like an 8-point outside the ears. I got him on video. I'm like, that's an awesome West Virginia buck, Shot him, dropped him, got up to him, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I'm happy with him because it's West Virginia, and it's one of the bigger deer I've killed down in West Virginia. But I'm looking at it, I'm like, that is definitely not.
So you probably thought he was like the size of my Indiana deer.
Yes, I thought he was the size of your Indiana deer, and he wasn't. And it's happened to me. It's happened to everybody. But if that would have been, I guess I should have remembered that I was hunting the hills of West Virginia, even though I knew I was. Because in Ohio, that buck would have been a different deer probably with the size of the bodies and everything. Because, that deer probably only weighed 120 pounds.
Yeah, if that. Probably
115 pounds.
Yeah.
So he looked big, but
he
didn't score big.
Right.
And that was 2020.
So again,
I think?
so is that a trophy for you?
Yes. Just like your elk, just like his 2-point mule deer. I mean, we're down at deer camp.
Yeah.
Grandpa can't come down because he's got cancer and he's sick, and we know he's never coming back down there again. So we're down there without Grandpa, and the whole talk of that camp was whatever we killed on there, we got to take and stop by Grandpa's house and see him on the way back to show him the deer, right? So I shot that buck. You shot a buck.
A smaller 8-point.
You shot even smaller 8-point. Chris shot one too, I think, or was it just me and you?
Chris shot something.
So we shot all these smaller bucks.
There was 4 bucks in camp that year.
Yeah, we shot all these smaller deer, and then we took them to Grandpa's house, and we showed him. We sat there and talked with him for a couple hours. He got to see all the deer and stuff. And
he passed away a week later.
2 days later. Yeah, 2 days later.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So you know what I mean? So you can't, and I was thinking about that when I was in the tree stand tonight because I was hunting with my grandma's gun, and I was going to shoot the 4-year-old 9, we call him, and it would have been a great story. Everything about it would have been cool. He's a mature deer shooting with grandma's gun, all this blah blah blah, and it's an old traditional cat block muzzleloader, no scope, nothing like that. So there's a challenge level there. But I was thinking in the tree stand, I love stories like that, and it means the whole world to me. But you can't make a story like that for every deer you shoot,
right?
Because you can start to say, well, I bought this property, so I need to shoot a deer. This
Totally
is the first one I've ever killed hunting with my boy. And,
I
eventually,
took Marie curve out. So
eventually you can come up with the excuse, I want to call it, for killing every deer. But at some point you have to have your line. And actually, I actually take that back because you don't have to have a line. You can just go out and kill willy-nilly whatever you want.
Yep.
But for me, it's got to mean something when I pull the trigger on a buck. And those are 2 examples of things that did mean a lot to me. And we're watching a video right now. There's a 125-inch 9-point on video that I passed 3 times this year. He's just sitting there eating in the food plot at 20 yards because he doesn't mean nothing to me.
I think
sitting there with my bow eating in the food plot, 3-year-old buck.
So this is a perfect.
That's bread and butter.
Perfect segue to talk about something I want to talk about, and it might trigger 2 of our friends from this year. But one of my biggest pet peeves is when somebody shoots something and then downplays the hell out of it.
We talked about this while you were doing dishes with your fiance. Me and Jay actually talked about this already.
Obviously, Dylan and Nick were both guilty of this year. I'll call them out. I don't care.
On our podcast intro, their titles are Big Buck Killers.
Yeah,
that's what I gave them as titles.
But
kind of tongue in cheek for this year.
But both the deer they shot in my book are impressive. Dylan's was obviously a 134 on public, and he downplayed the shit out of it. He said it was smaller than he thought. He wasn't happy with it.
I think I'll let you finish.
And then Nick's was the same way. He shot a 130-inch 4-year-old, and he downplayed that as well. So when people do that infuriates me.
I get it. and I won't speak on Nick's because I don't know anything about it, but a little bit of Dylan's. Him and I have talked, and we've talked about it, all of us. I think I don't know. I could be wrong, and I don't want to speak for Dylan. I think Dylan really is happy with the experience that happened, and it was a matter of probably ground shrinkage, and also I don't know. I feel like he was having a tough year up until that point, and I think.
Oh, we can tell you, he was a rage quit. So his target buck got killed up here. So he's like, I'm going down south with my dad. I'm gonna go kill a buck.
So I think we can all agree.
Then he did the next day.
I think we can all agree. Hunting, especially on. When I say level, I mean intensity that we all do it.
Yeah.
It's a very intense thing. We put a lot of time and energy into it. The harder it gets and the worse things go. And I don't want to speak for Dylan. This would be me. I would be if I were in this situation. Antlers tend to grow the longer and harder the season gets. In the sense that, like, all of a sudden that 130 starts looking a lot better. That 140 looks like a fucking world beater.
Well, and that's how Nick explains his story. Throughout that hunt, that deer started getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
And I think
all the way up to the point where
I've had it happen to me. I mean, I think if you put enough time in the woods and you struggle enough, you start hitting on enough chicks, ugly chicks start to look a lot better, man. Like, you get shot down enough. So that end of the night, those girls are looking a lot better. So I don't think it's any different. The longer the season goes, the harder it gets. Those smaller deer you start mentally making them bigger than they are.
I think. So here's the thing about that.
Yeah, what do you got to say?
Well,
here's what I got to say about that.
Both those deer are deer that everyone here knows, and everyone in our group knows, and all the audience knows that both those deer that those guys shot that I would have killed, no questions asked.
Oh, no doubt.
Not even a question asked. I would have shot it.
That's why I hate
been the proudest bastard in the world.
Yeah, they downplay something I would have been very excited about.
I think both of them, those two examples, good friends of mine that I've known for a very, very long time, I think they got used to the clout of I kill 150 every year, so I'm expected to kill 150 every year. I hunt and I act and I talk like I kill a 150 every year, so I have to kill a 150 every year. Because we live in Northeast Ohio and we're a bunch of young men and testosterone flows, and they kill bigger deer than we do on average, so they're used to killing bigger deer on average, and that's just something that they got used to. So when they shot deer, when the opportunities came and whatever played out, and they get down here and they drag the deer into the shop and we put a measuring tape on it and it's not the number that they want, that's when they start the
backpedaling
justification of what they did. And it's funny, in what world would you think, and if you're a local listener, in what world would you think that Spanny and Freeman have killed bigger deer this year than Dylan and Nick? It's never happened.
For the first time in decades.
It's never happened. In our group's history, that has never happened, and this year it happened.
The only part that bums me out, and I think if you were to ask them both, they would probably agree, is that at the end of the day, it's kind of tongue in cheek, bummed out. You're taking an animal's life.
Yeah.
You're not being unappreciative of that.
Right.
Like we're talking specifically about these stupid things that are on this animal's head.
Vanity.
Yeah.
Vanity.
It
because
really
all
is,
four of those deer were the same exact age.
But like, let's not forget that. I think we're all like-minded. We're all in the same group. And I think those guys respect the animal and.
None of that's ever in question.
Well, I don't know what kind of listener. Like, I don't want that you're like some average listener or whatever you want to call them, or somebody who's just looking to get into hunting going, man, I'd be happy to just kill a deer.
Yeah, 135-inch public deer.
So I don't want it. Like, they're not. I don't think they're unappreciative. And like it's lingo, right? Like disappointed or downplay. Like those are pretty powerful things. And
well, Well, like we talked about pre-podcast, if Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns, he's mad. But 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns would be 20 of the 32 quarterbacks' best season of their lives.
Right.
And they're professionals.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like
Right.
when you have that standard for yourself,
We're talking
I
about
perform here.
disappointment in a very small aspect of the big picture.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I just want to
Yeah.
clear that up.
And all, like I said, all 4 of those deer, Spaniels, Freemans, Nicks, and Dillons I believe they were all 4-year-old bucks. I mean, we had all 4 of them were in here in the shop. Their bodies were all about the same, 200 plus pounds. Dillons might have actually. There's some conjecture that Dillons might have actually even been older. His might have even been a 5-year-old deer based on the blockiness of his head and his Roman nose and stuff. Which at that point we're talking about a 5-year-old public land buck in a heavily pressured area, and he shot it during youth gun weekend. So there's kids out. There's a lot of things that are an accomplishment there. But I do agree. I happen to side on your side a little bit on this, Isaac, when you see your friend shoot a really good buck and then they might be disappointed by it.
Well,
It's
and
like,
that's
man,
also they're letting on to us that they may be disappointed. Deep down, personally, they're probably very excited about that, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
What they tell their buddies and how they're feeling can be 2 very different things.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't
especially
know,
in
but
a
I
group.
have had that feeling where this buck I shot in Kansas one year was the definition of that. It was the first time that I really had the experience of significant ground shrinkage. I thought I had shot something really special, and he ended up, I think, in the 140s. But he had just his frame and everything was just really something like from the stand. And it ended up being that situation. This was like week 3. I'm starting to get tired. Things are looking a lot.
Growing.
Yeah, things are looking really good. He had kickers and everything, and I'm like, what a giant.
yeah.
And I felt that first, for lack of a better term, disappointment. And I felt so gross for feeling that way because I just shot this thing. I just took this animal's life, and it was it was a very marked point in my hunting career, so to speak, that I'm like, I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that no matter what I kill from this point on, I'm going to be happy. There's going to be I'm not going to feel that way.
Yeah.
So
The only time we talked about the West Virginia deer, the thing is I didn't feel that way when I shot him. So that when I shot him in the moment, everything was good. Got him back to camp and everything was good because in that atmosphere, a deer like the one I shot is not a bad thing. They've killed 100 deer down there of that size. It's what the hill running deer of West Virginia in our mind is. Even though we know that there are good deer down there and we've started to learn that, I didn't feel that way till after I get home, putting the video together, putting things online, talking about the seasons, and then I got this 2.5-year-old 80-inch whitetail that I shot in the hills, and how much of things cross your mind that might not be important. Like guys like me and Isaac, things might cross our mind that might not be important to anybody but ourselves. But you start getting those feelings of, well, I'm putting out videos and I'm trying to be an example, and we got this podcast and I'm trying to entertain, but we're trying to at least be a good example of what a woodsman should be, stick up for our sport. This, that, and the other.
We're trying to paint a good picture.
And to me, it was like, man, I just don't. It was after that West Virginia buck, even though it meant so much because of the grandpa thing we talked about. That's when I made that decision after that buck. You know what? All the hunting that we do, I'm going to make sure that that next buck that I take, he might not score well, but I'm going to make sure that I do shoot a mature deer because I don't need to be killing. To me, I don't need to be killing young deer just to fill the tag. That's something we've kind of got into with some of our other podcast buddies and some of our YouTube friends. There's the weight of filling a tag and the weight of making content. So there's a lot of people that we hang out with that if they buy a tag for a trip or whatever, they're filling it. Mm-hmm. And it don't matter if it's a spike 6-point, 2-year-old 8-point, 160-inch 5-year-old. They're going to fill the tag because they spent the money. They want an end result for their money they spent. They want to make content. And some of them aren't even filming anymore. Some of it's just they want to be able to talk about what they did. And a lot of guys fill tags just because they bought them. I have a box at home. I don't know if you keep them or not, what you do.
No, I throw mine away.
See, I don't. I have a box
very
of
sad stack.
unfilled tags in my house that's like, It's funny how you only go on 4 or 5 hunts a year, right? All of a sudden, I have 100 stacks of paper.
Yeah, if I
you know
kept
what I mean?
those, it would just remind me of the money I'm spending on,
in my
on long camping trips.
In my kill kit, in my bag, I do have some just because I've never cleaned it out. Like I got Idaho, and I got a stack.
I just pulled
in
my
there.
Utah shit out.
I have my Utah shit right there.
Yep.
It doesn't bother me to have unfilled tags.
It doesn't bother me. It's
but some people it really, really does.
Yeah, I guess that you know what. I think it again. What experience are you getting out of your unused tag? If you're just hunting out of your back door every day on your 10 acres, it's probably not as memorable as a trip out west.
Right.
So that I get that it's kind of scalable. Mm-hmm. It's a sliding scale of what is that unfilled tag. Did you at least get an amazing experience out of it? And that's the one thing about Western hunting. You can come home empty-handed 90% of the time with an animal. Mm-hmm. But you're going to come home 100% of the time with an amazing experience.
I think when it comes to the whitetail world of things, we have kind of perfected the ability, in my opinion, to have a good camp. So I think a lot of people and a lot of guys that are buying these tags and filling it at no cost are the kind of guys that are sleeping in their truck, hunting all day, every day, driven to be in the woods and to make the most. They're here to hunt. We're here to hunt, not drink beer. Whereas when we do our whitetail camps, when we do our trips outside of the Western stuff that you guys do, and even sometimes on these Western trips that you guys have gone on, you guys take days off to go into town. You guys take days off to go get fucked up at some bar somewhere. When we go on our whitetail trips, we're cooking steaks. Mm-hmm. We're bringing a couple bottles of whiskey and some beer, and we're going to enjoy ourselves.
So we're making
guess
that.
What?
You're still
it's
making
fucking
memories.
raining, and it's fucking raining and cold outside. Guess what? I'm fucking sleeping in.
Or every time
we enjoy the whole experience of hunting, and it's not just about the hunting. For some guys, they have a hard time understanding that they're here to hunt. Season's only 5 days long.
I'm guilty. I'm guilty of that.
I'm gonna do everything I can in those 5 days to kill that animal
for sure.
And if it ends up being the last day and I got to kill a 6-point buck because that's all I got, I'm doing it.
It would take something like me doing a West Virginia deer camp to go, look, I can't take this.
It loosens the ropes a little bit.
Yeah,
it takes a little bit of a weight off your chest.
That is because I kind of cut my teeth that way. It's just how I do it, like it's travel. It's I'm putting all this time in. I don't want to waste a minute of it. But if it were something like, Indiana would be a bad example because you guys invited me there, but I would be that way in Indiana. I would just
no, you don't have to be though.
So I wouldn't have to be, but like West Virginia would be that I could sleep in. I'd be a camp cook. I wouldn't care about missing a morning. Like the stage would have to be set for me. I couldn't do it myself. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
When we went to Kentucky for I think it was for Muzzleloader. When we went to Kentucky for the Muzzleloader in October, so it was the second time we went down there this year. We went with Born Again Matt. We went with Aaron Olson. We were down there with some other YouTube channel guys and stuff. We hunted the one morning till about 9. Left our farm because it was just dead. Went to some public land. Me and Ethan did kind of a mosey, I guess you would call it. We checked out some public land, went up on top of a ridge, went down into a valley, kind of just basically still hunted our way through. It was about 11 o'clock at that point. And we're driving back, and we're outside of a relatively big city. And me and Ethan are looking at each other, and we're like, well, we can. At this point, we were tent camping on the property, and they were camping with us. And they were all out. Like, Matt was hunting his property. He has a private farm. He was hunting. Aaron was hunting public land somewhere. And me and Ethan are looking at each other like, well, it's 11 o'clock, and we can hunt. We're gonna hunt tonight, obviously. But like, what do you want to do right now? Do you want to go find another piece of public land to do some scouting, some mosey hunting, or I'm like, there's a fucking steakhouse right outside the exit. Ethan's trying. He looks over at me. He's like, yeah. So we go straight to that steakhouse. No one there, right? Fucking get in, go straight to the bar. No one there. Decent waitress. She starts conversation up with us, obviously. She ended up knowing the guy's property we were hunting the whole 9 yards. So just had a great time. We texted the 2 other guys. Aaron and Matt, and they're go harders. I mean, these guys, Aaron and Matt are fucking go harders, right? Text them, hey man, we're getting lunch at this steakhouse. If you guys can join us if you want, you can, or we'll just see you camp tonight if you. And they actually said, all right, we'll be there. They actually left their spots and they came. We ended up having a meal, drank a couple beers, went back to camp, hunted that night. Didn't see shit. But you know what? I had a great fucking time.
Yeah.
Like it made it so it wasn't like I'm not turning this into work.
Right.
It's hard. I will say
it's hard for me. Making it casual is work for me.
I will admit that the whitetail world is different than
if
we're going bear hunting.
Yeah, definitely.
If we're going to spend $5,000 to climb up in the mountains, obviously we're going to make that a thing. But I'm talking, this example is we're whitetail hunting in Kentucky. We can make this as hard as we want, or we can make this as easy as we want. We can make it enjoyable, or we can make it suck. Which one do we want to do? And in order to go back, if we're going to go back every year and keep doing this hunt and have and enjoy going on this hunt, sometimes you got to take those days off and just say, fuck it, we're going to the steakhouse.
I mean, why do you think I like solo hunting on these trips so much? Because I can do whatever I want.
Right.
If I want to get a hotel and sleep for 12 hours and not do anything, I do.
It is.
Nobody can shame me.
It's so true, because that's like when we hunted together out there, like it has to be a collective decision.
Yeah.
And one guy could be on his last wits, and it don't fucking matter.
Yeah,
like,
all three of us.
I feel like you were on your last wits for 12 days straight.
But never broke.
No. I am surprised. The only surprising thing about our bear hunt together is the first time we took a break after like 5 days of going hard. We took a break. We went into town, got a meal and stuff. You guys, we're going around the table to like have our meal, and you guys both ordered water, and I'm thinking, fuck, I want a beer so goddamn bad. And you guys are like, no, we gotta go back up in the mountains tomorrow. We ain't doing no drinking or anything. And we drank water. That was a shocking moment of our bear trip for me.
Because several days later, then what happened? We
made up for it.
Jay puked for 30 hours straight.
We went to a different steakhouse. We gave up on.
No, we went to the same one. We went back to that one. We went to the bar. They had a bar in the back.
Yeah, there's not a lot of places to go where we were.
Yeah.
And it was a bad decision because Jay was out of service for an entire fucking day.
Kidney failure, liver failure.
Yeah, that was not good.
Still didn't quit.
No, but it was a good time. And I guess to come full circle on that, our whitetail trips, it's a whitetail deer. It's a goat that lives in the woods that don't like people. And they don't even know what antlers are on their head, like we talked about. So I'm going to enjoy hunting those whitetail deer on those trips. I'll go there. In West Virginia, we'll have days where we do multiple all-day sits. But it's because we already spent 4 days at camp, or we know there's a good buck in the area. And we know that after that all-day sit, when we get back down to the cabin, it's going to be warm, there's going to be beer, there's going to be good food, hot bed, good times. So it makes that all-day hunt not suck. And West Virginia's got the hill problem where it doesn't get light till 9 and it gets dark at 3. So like our all-day hunts are only 6 hours long.
So
and then you can sleep for 12 hours.
So what's a trophy to you?
So to me, and I know we're coming all the way back around, to me, I'm going to have to agree with your elk situation. I believe that a trophy is anything that the person who takes the animal feels satisfied in. It could be a 110-inch buck. It could be a 200-inch buck. It could be a spike bull. It could be a 6x6 bull. I say that with the caveat of, in the whitetail world, since we have so many opportunities to hunt deer, I do believe as long as it's a mature buck, anyone could be happy with that. The buck that Dan Kaufman shot that scored 306 inches was still just probably a 5-year-old whitetail. No different than that buck above the heater that Isaac shot that scored 107 inches. When it comes to the animal's smartness, his experience, the animal itself's ability to elude hunters, and the quality of animal that it is the same, regardless of whether he's 107 or 306. Now, obviously, I want to shoot big bucks. So, given the opportunity, I'm always going to shoot the deer that has the bigger antlers on his head, unless it's a situation where we know the deer is extremely young. And I've never been in the hypothetical 160-inch 3-year-old, so I can't answer that. I honestly cannot answer that question. We've passed a lot of 130-inch 3-year-olds, but that's not. I don't say that in a way that anyone should hang their hat on that. That's just a very common deer around here that you can see on every hunt if you want. So when you start to see deer like that on every hunt, it changes the way you feel about it. Do I pass a 130-inch deer in West Virginia? Never. Now, that 130-inch deer is probably older than 3 in West Virginia, but I don't know that for sure.
So let me ask you this follow-up question.
Hit me
and
with
I think this is the one that's going to bother you. How do you feel about someone else's deer that you think's a trophy that they don't?
So we're talking about the Dylan Nick situation. Yeah. I'm not going to shoot a 130-inch buck kind of thing. Yeah. Well, I'm watching my best friend hold a 130-inch deer on the TV after he said
That's a beautiful deer, man.
See, that's the thing to me. I think it is a beautiful deer. I think, and I don't want to keep hammering on Dylan and Nick because they're our guys. But it's
you don't have to use them as an example, but like use anybody.
They are the perfect example.
They are the perfect example of that. Isaac's right. But
right now, this year.
I think that it's a little bit of a, I don't want to say slap in the face because that's not the way it is. I think you have those little hot face moments if there's a deer you're proud of that someone else downplays. But I think it's kind of hard to downplay a 130-inch buck anywhere. Now, obviously you go to Iowa and those guys are going to be like, 130-inch bucks? I keep those in my chicken coop. Like those are the ones we haven't even let out yet, But I'm used to it, so it doesn't bother me as much. I'm happy that my friends killed human deer this year. If that makes any sense.
I think if you take the trophy word out of it, it changes everything. What I would like to replace that word is with happy. Are you happy? Does it have to be a trophy for you to be happy? Not you. This is a rhetorical question.
Because for me, no, it doesn't.
Yeah, what? Like
I'm trying to shoot
whatever a
120
trophy is. For me, it's no. I mean, I don't consider a cow elk a inch trophy. It was a trophy experience. So it gets kind of semantics, but if we could change that word, is it something that made you insanely happy?
Right.
And did it give you a lifetime memory? That, to me, is a trophy.
Yeah. I like that a lot. I think it's known that my definition of a trophy would probably be a little bit less than some of my friends. I'm not gonna set the standard for myself of killing a 150-inch 5-year-old every year. Do I want to? I do. I do want to kill that deer every year.
Or you end up not killing one for 10 years.
Yeah. But I also know that that's not necessarily realistic. I'm not going to go to some small town dive bar somewhere, Lodi, Ohio, and try to pull Pam Anderson every time. I'm never going to find her. Right. She's not there. You know what I'm saying? Like it's so right. To think that you are makes you retarded.
Right.
Am I allowed to say that on this podcast? No. Make a note.
But yes, you could say that.
So I think I think there are a number of people that have an unattainable expectation all the time. Yes, we all want to kill 150-inch 5-year-olds in the deer woods. No one's going to pass that deer, put it that way. But it's not obtainable for everybody. Could I do more work and find some? Maybe. Do I want to do work that way to find properties where I can find a 150-inch deer, knock on doors and make promises to landowners and all these things to find deer like that caliber? Or would I rather plant my little food plots, run my little trail cameras, hang my stands exactly where I want them, and shoot the deer that are available to me?
What were you going to say? You like almost interrupted him for.
Well, I was going to talk about the trophy things, but what he was going on about what makes you happy and what makes it a trophy, and like the experience is what makes me happy. So I've actually had trophies of mine that I've missed.
Yeah.
So like one of my best favorite experiences was the bull that I missed in Montana 2 years ago, and I missed it. So like that whole experience was the trophy to me. I was able to make a film. That's what I like doing. I like going on these trips and making films. And most of the time, me making the film kind of takes away from me trying to kill the animal. Like if I wouldn't film on these trips, maybe I'd be a little bit more successful. But that's not how I want to do things. So it makes me happy to be able to make the films, and to get those opportunities, even if they don't work out.
Me and Isaac.
And that's happened several times.
Me and Isaac have talked about this a lot before in the past. When we're 70 and one of us is laying in that fucking hospital bed dying of job place related cancer, like, are we gonna is it gonna matter to us that we got a barn full of 130-inch bucks, or are we gonna be sitting there in that hospital bed, be able to watch us as younger men walk through the woods and have those, and our kids, my kids are gonna be able to watch Dad hunting Montana for bears and see that young man invigorated and having a good time, and not just have some old musty mount on his barn wall that my daughter doesn't give a fuck about. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense
us,
because I think it really ties into kind of my mantra of seasons left, right? Like you only get to do this for so long.
Yeah.
And shame on you if you're not doing what makes you happy.
Right.
You know, because like just because I make myself miserable, that makes me happy. That might not be your happiness. That's okay.
Sure ain't.
Like you want to do crossbows over corn piles and shoot 150s, and I'm not going to respect it. But if that makes you happy, cool, man. I'm stoked for you.
To throw crossbows at corn piles.
It's my favorite J line. I'm not going to respect it. But if it makes you happy,
you can live in your own fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, hey, if that's what you got so many seasons left doing, and that's what makes you happy, and that's how you're building memories, and you're doing that with friends and family. Man, that I'm all about it. That's I think what it's all about, for sure. And really, what you just said is one of the only reasons I agree to do this stuff with you guys, because you guys know me for a long time. I've never been a big like social media hunter or video guy. But the reason you guys do it, the driving force behind it are all the right reasons. And for any of your listeners, like, I'm the biggest critic out there when it comes to this shit. And I'm speaking from the heart when I say this. These guys are doing it for the right reasons, and they couldn't be more genuine. Like, Caleb just had a kid. Isaac's getting married. He's going to have kids, and they're going to pass this stuff on, and it's handing down this next generation of the outdoors and hunting and everything. And that's a real trophy, if you ask me.
Man, I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. It's going to be hard to beat that line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, damn. Well, this was a pretty big trophy to me as well. What's playing on the TV is Kendall's buck that she shot this year.
Hell yeah.
Her first deer on our property that we bought this year.
Awesome.
I mean, it might not be a big property. It's not going to be a hunting property in the future, but she was able to go out and shoot this deer during gun season.
That better be on your mantle over your fireplace.
You're getting mounted.
Yeah, it's at the taxidermist right now.
Yeah, for sure.
They're not having a fireplace in their house.
You better.
We might. Maybe.
Now you're going to build one?
Maybe.
Why wouldn't
Maybe a gas fireplace. I don't know. Maybe.
What? It's a house, not a fireplace. What are you talking about?
Cheap. Yeah, cheap.
Dude.
To go back to what you were saying on my experience, I had a lot of years where I didn't kill any bucks, and I was like kind of known as a guy who didn't kill any bucks. And then I had the streak where I was killing the buck I wanted 3 years in a row. I went out there, I'm killing this buck, before the season, I'm killing this buck, and as the season progressed, I was able to kill that buck. Since then, I've had another streak where I haven't really killed any bucks, not for lack of trying, obviously. And I think I almost pigeonholed myself into this is the buck I want to kill this year, so I'm either going to kill this buck or no buck. And, inevitably here in Ohio, that buck dies or that buck disappears or that buck gets hit by a car or whatever. So I think that has skewed my personal opinion on things a little bit, because there's deer prior to me having that streak of killing the buck I wanted to that I probably would have killed now or back then, but I'm not killing now. Mm-hmm. It's growth as a hunter a little bit.
Sure.
My growth as a hunter is not as big as some people. I mean, like we talked about our friends in this podcast already that aren't here to defend themselves, guys like Dylan and Nick. They've already grown to the point where they have X amount of 140, 150-inch bucks underneath their belt. So they might feel like that 130-inch buck is a down season for them because they already have the wall of 130, 140-inch bucks, 150-inch bucks. Dylan's case, he's got a 200-inch buck. I'm not one of those guys. Luke is, and he's not here to talk about it, that's killed a deer of that caliber. Because where do you go from there? Once you kill your 200, which in the whitetail world is the end all be. I mean, once you kill a 200-inch buck, what's next?
Right.
A 130-inch buck probably feels small to Dylan because he's got a 26-point 200-inch deer on his wall.
So let me ask you.
You know
this.
what I mean?
Let me ask you this. With God, I wish he was here because I don't.
I
feel-
tried. He was here and he
I
dropped
know.
that damn
He
deer
gave-
off. And
he
then
gave me
left.
the reason.
He's probably at the casino.
No,
right
he's
now.
not. He's not. He told me. He told me why, and
Okay.
and it's family stuff,
Okay,
and I
all
respect it. So, but like, could it be something as simple as he thought it was bigger?
Yeah, 100%.
And just
Yeah.
it's just
He,
that.
that night that he shot,
And I
the
don't know,
night that he
Nick. Could
shot-
that have applied to Nick as well?
No. Nick knew exactly the
watched
deer
him.
he shot.
He knew exactly the
For
deer.
90 minutes, he watched the deer. He knew. But for Dylan did text us that evening, hey, stuck a deer, might have hit back, found some beds. We're going to go back in the morning. That's when everyone came down to help him recover it. He thought it was a like 140, 150 class with junk on the brows. Like he did think that it was a bigger deer than what he ended up recovering.
Yeah.
But I think he might have, can't put words in his mouth, obviously, but he might have fallen into that trap up here. That deer up here might have weighed another 20, 30 pounds in farm country because he was hunting southern Ohio, close to the Ohio River, hill country deer that doesn't eat any ag.
Mm-hmm.
So that deer might
And-
have looked
And
giant. eating
plus all the
acorns.
deer that he's hunting up here, he's got pictures of. He's
Right,
got history
right.
with. He
Plus
knows
the tough
deer.
season.
Yeah.
Yeah, plus the tough season.
So I don't know. I don't.
Well, we bring it up because our group talks about stuff like this, like
Daily.
not what makes a shoot, not what a trophy is, but our group talks about deer and look at this buck. I'm chasing this buck. Is this buck a shooter? We talk about this 365 days a year for the last 15 years. I mean,
Right.
every single day, someone is talking about a deer that they know. So this is a topic that is very comfortable with us. Some people are going to be like, oh, they just talked for an hour and 11 minutes about I just shoot the thing that I see in the
Right.
woods and I like it.
Right.
But this is something that our circle of people talk about often.
Yeah, it's interesting because I couldn't be more different, right? Like I don't hunt a deer.
Right.
I don't hunt a property.
Right.
Like I do. It's so foreign to me.
And you don't hunt in a group setting like we do.
Yeah, I
all
don't-
of our hunting is in a group setting,
Right.
basically.
Right. So it's kind of cool to watch it and go, boy, I don't know how I would be in that situation. You know.
A lot of the deer that we end up shooting or chasing around here is deer that we've been sharing pictures with our group and talking about for sometimes years.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are deer alive right now that we've been talking about for 4 or 5 years. I mean, think about that. It's older than some people's dogs. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
we spend all that time because it's just something that we enjoy doing is discussing deer and talking about the deer on our farms and our houses.
Yeah,
and our
in the
property.
end, this is all our hobbies,
Right.
basically. Our favorite hobby.
But it also, I think it's more than a hobby, though, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, it's
Like,
a lifestyle.
I think it's a lifestyle. and
It is. Well, it's definitely
For us,
turned-
it's definitely a lifestyle.
we like to we like to call it a hobby and it's our release from the real world, but it's literally part of our everyday lives.
Yeah, it's a lifestyle.
everyday lives.
I think calling it a hobby is really underselling it. It's understating it.
Mm-hmm.
Hobby is throwing darts.
Golf.
Playing pool.
Yeah,
I mean, there are, and you can get into some of those things. People do get invested in, just like
Yeah.
we are invested in this.
and
but-
then it's not a hobby anymore.
right. You play guitar really good, it doesn't become a hobby anymore. You're a band.
Yeah, exactly.
You bowl really good, you end up on TV and making
Yeah.
money at
Yeah.
it. You know.
Who do you think you are? I am. It's the greatest line of all time.
You guys got anything else?
No,
Oh, I'm sure we can keep going.
I mean, I could keep going. I don't feel like we've hit the limit on this. I know Isaac's like, I got to edit this tonight and get it out in the morning. I got work.
No, it's still early.
Yeah, I do want to jump into maybe introduce what we're going to talk about on our next podcast with the seasons left.
Oh, okay.
I think we want to make that a separate podcast.
Okay.
And it's
Maybe not our
obviously-
next in-line podcast.
No,
but
no,
the next
but-
podcast with Jay.
Yeah, and
If you're still listening, we got some announcements
if
here.
you want to kind of introduce
Sure.
what you're going to do.
Yeah, this is still very infantile, and I'm waiting on a very important phone call to make this solid. But not to get all crazy, and whatever. But I've had a pretty difficult last year, and I'm ready to move forward and do some cool shit. And if everything plays out the way I'm hoping it plays out, I'm really going to lean into the seasons left thing, and I'm going to do a solo moose hunt to Alaska for the month of September and make a feature film out of it the best I can. And when I say that, basically, I'm just going to film everything that I can, and then us three are going to sit down, and I've already started notes on how I kind of want things to lay out, music I want played, and it's going to be like seasons left, which I'm trademarking. Don't steal it.
He is trademarking that.
But by way of Siman Brothers Outdoors, I think it's too big of a deal not to. If I were going to hunt anything that I was able to afford, that I may never be able to do again because I don't know what the future holds, this is going to be it. And if I don't. I'm probably not going to have a family, so if this is something I can leave behind to like pass on to whoever could like get motivated by this is going to be it. And so I don't want to get too crazy. I'm waiting on a very important phone call to see if this is all going to play out. If not, it's going to be back to scratch because it's all DIY from grassroots of me making phone calls, emails, just hours and almost 2 years worth now of research to make it affordable for me. So, and the reason I'm doing it solo is because I don't know how many people have done it successfully. Probably not many. And there's probably a million people out there going, you're a fucking idiot. And yes, I am.
But so when it comes down to it, this is pretty much our people that don't know about the do-it-yourself hunting. This is pretty much our Super Bowl when it comes to this. In Alaska, do-it-yourself moose hunt is pretty much the highest you can get when it comes to a do-it-yourself hunt that is within reason for the normal human to pay for. Obviously, the sheep hunters and goat hunters, all that, they're going to be like, well, our shit's so much harder and better. But something that's within reason, not spending.
Yeah, and I'm not sure
$40,000,
those are over-the-counter possible.
No, so that's what I'm saying. This is pretty much as hardcore as you can get.
Yeah, I think so.
Hunting.
Yeah, it's it should be really something special. I hope I do it justice, which I know I won't. Video never does, right? But
you never know.
I think.
Hopefully, you don't die.
But if I do, that's cool.
Can you leave
that would be the coolest video ever.
Can you leave the footage to us in your will in case you do die so the government...
I'll tell you what, I've always made this joke that if I could pick a way to die, I get mauled by a bear.
Tristan?
And the only thing you find is like my tattooed arm, and that's how you know it was me. Like that, and it was like that motherfucker lived a life, man. Like
you've seen Legends of the Fall, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
So if you do die up there...
It was a good death.
I will say I will fly up there and try to get all of your stuff.
All right, cool.
I'll try to find your cameras, your phone, all that shit that they leave behind.
Sweet. It'll be in some bear shit.
The funny part is it's not that out of the realm of possibility.
No, it's
killed by a bear on this fucking trip.
Every single person, especially people in Alaska and who have done Alaska, will tell you that's a terrible idea.
So you need... I've sent some feeler messages out, and I haven't got a ton of feedback back from them. But I want to get Seth and Kasich on here, and Seth particularly because of his caribou hunt. He did a solo. He didn't do it solo, but he went by, from what I believe, he had it planned to go with someone. It fell through. He went on his caribou hunt anyways, but there was some other people in the area. He got drop camped in, but he was by himself. And I do believe, not to quote him without him being here, but I mean, grizzlies were a problem during their hunt. You know, they were having problems with grizzly bears while trying to kill these caribou. I would love to get him on here to talk about that because he's one of our good friends that we've known since high school. It lives right down the road. It's a logistics thing. I'm getting him on the podcast, and if he would agree to do it, but I think that'd be a great conversation to have. To hear about that because he went to Canada, right? Was it Alaska or Canada?
It may have been Canada. I'm not sure. I mean, all one.
Wherever you can
one
kill,
of the same.
wherever you can hunt caribou.
Northern Alaska.
It could be British Columbia. Well,
It was a plane hunt, is all I know.
It was probably Alaska if it was DIY, because I don't think in Canada there's any DIY left. I think you have to have a guide no matter what you do in Canada.
Side note, do you know much, speaking of that, do you know much about how Zecs work?
Do what?
Zecs, Z-E-C-S, in Quebec.
Sounds like a Canadian thing.
It is. It's my assistant chief where I work. Him and his dad and his brother own a camp in Quebec on a lake in a moose zone, and I believe in these Zecs, some of those laws that require a guide and the two rule, a guide in lodging or lodging and transportation, or the Canada has the tool. I don't think they apply in these Zecs, and I do believe we'd be able, or I would be able to hunt moose there without a guide in that area.
I am unfamiliar.
Yeah,
on
I
all
gotta
levels.
look into it too. And that is something that we haven't planned yet, and me and him have talked about doing it. They go up there for fish camp. They fish, but their camp originally was a moose camp that they bought from a French guy that was in Quebec, all that.
Sure.
But I do believe that they are allowed to hunt moose on their property or their zone that they have at that camp without the 2 rule, which would be interesting to look into. It's not British Columbia moose. We're not talking about the giant trophy Alaskan type moose. These are brush country, smaller. I think
they're probably Cyrus moose. Maybe.
Yeah, but still, to be able to go up there and hunt moose without having all the logistics of what you have to have might be an interesting thing to look into.
Sure, definitely.
But it's in Quebec. They have these things called Zecs, and I can't even remember what Zec stands for. Something controlled,
idea.
something.
But this is something we'll obviously look forward to in the future, and hopefully you get those phone calls. And once plans are set in stone, then we'll talk about it a lot more.
Yeah. So I would say probably just to wrap that part up is if this goes through, I get this phone call, and the phone call I'm waiting for is from my pilot. If he's willing to do what I'm looking to do, if he gives me a thumbs up, then I think what I'm going to do is be real dramatic about it, and I'm just going to get off social media and post. When I say get off social media, like for me personally, I'm just going to log off and then periodically post updates throughout the year, because this is going to be a year-long training, fitness, diet, logistics, and then kind of let you follow along throughout the year if anybody gives a shit. All 8 of my followers. Well,
the Western thing is something we've found that we don't have a ton of our small group that really does that kind of thing. But Isaac's, your guys' Western stuff and Isaac's Western stuff reaches a pretty broad audience out there without having to worry about our people, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I really hope this phone call goes away. I'm hoping. And God willing,
you'll be getting dropped off and hunting moose somewhere by yourself.
Yeah, yep. And that's the kind of, people are like, why is it such a big deal by yourself? Other than the safety aspect, just physically, hauling a moose out by yourself. The
size of animal, being by yourself in Alaskan wilderness, grizzly bear, whole 9 yards.
Wolves. So, yeah.
Cool. I think that's where we'll leave it today.
Yeah, I'm satisfied.
Everybody, thanks for sticking with us through this. A Deer Shot podcast.
Hope the comments get spicy. I want to hear what you guys think.
Yeah, let's go.
If people are still listening, leave a comment. Tell us what you think. If we're a bunch of assholes, tell us we're a bunch of assholes. We don't care.
Yeah. Also, oh boy.
Well,
No, I was just going to say what we were talking about earlier. When I went down to Charlotte and a bunch of guys were like, man, I love following you. If you guys are following, please interact. Subscribe.
Yeah, reach out.
Forward things. Ask questions. Make comments. I was actually really surprised at how many lurkers there are that they'll watch, they'll listen, but they don't interact. But this thing doesn't grow without that.
And we love input. I would like to know if something that we're doing is interesting and we're not touching it enough. let us know.
Yeah.
And
Also,
because we're only going off of what we feel that day right now.
This is a bunch of firemen, like thick skin.
Yeah, you're not gonna
like
hurt
you're not going to hurt feelings that don't exist.
And if you do,
I
if
get
you
called
do
a whale turd 500 times a year. In case anyone doesn't know what a whale turd is, it's the biggest piece of shit there ever was. The biggest piece of shit that's ever been created on this earth. And I get called that on a daily basis for the last 20 years of my life. I mean,
yeah.
listen, it ain't going to hurt us
And
at all.
anything you say or comment to us, we will see. And if it's interesting, we will talk about it for sure.
Yeah.
And we'll respond. We respond to everything if it has any sort of value.
So, side note, I've been doing the Deer Shop Shorts channel a little bit just to kind of hawk just the short clips of our podcasts and stuff. And this one will actually be a good podcast to do that. It'll create a bunch of good stuff. But it's funny how negative the comments are on that little channel compared to the SBO main channel. So,
Wait, say that again?
So on the SBO main channel,
Mm-hmm.
Siman Brothers Outdoors, where you guys are watching this podcast on YouTube right now, the comments are always usually pretty good. Some of them are negative, but they have context, right? Like whatever the thing is that the person's saying is negative, they have a reason for it. On my Deer Shop Shorts channel, which is it's a newer YouTube channel I have that just has little 30-second clips of this podcast, all the comments are like, that's fucking lame. What the fuck was the point of that? You're a bunch of fucking losers.
Also, I think it's kind of apropos,
the same
right?
content,
But
though.
it's apropos, right? Because it's short comments for the shorts,
Right.
like not a lot of context.
Yeah.
It's just fuck you.
Like there was one that was like I can't even remember. At this point I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like we were talking about the difference between hunting, say Ohio and West Virginia or something, and there was a clear purpose of the 30-second video, like hunting farm country in Ohio next to cornfield is so much different than when you're up on. And some guy commented, he's just like, "What the fuck was the point of this video?" Like, bro, I don't know. It's on your shorts feed. You're scrolling through your shorts feed, and you come across our podcast.
But thanks for the comment.
It's just funny. But like, no one's that.
Subscribe.
Many people aren't that dicky on the main channel. So like on the main channel, they're all. I don't know what.
I think it's probably more.
This is an audience we've built up over years.
Yeah. I wonder what the viewership is for shorts.
Everyone.
Like,
I think it's everyone.
so it
could be some girl sitting there getting her nails done.
Yeah,
you know what
right,
I'm saying? Like
yeah.
she's just scrolling through the shorts
Where
channel,
where she's like, "What the fuck?"
These fucking what the fuck?
Yeah, yeah.
Which that to me, it's funny.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But we digress.
Yeah, I digress.
Thanks for listening. Deer Shop Podcast episode
76.
76.
Oof.
And we are out.